Testing, testing. Welcome to the Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for October 15th, 2025. First item is approve the minutes of our meeting of October 8th, 2025. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Suchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbay.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Morning, Mr. Chair. There are 5 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is an application from USource LLC. Item number 2 is a cancellation notice from Merchants Bonding Company. Item number 3 is a request for an extension from Jacobs Place Solar LLC. Item number 4 is another extension request from Churchville Solar LLC. And item number 5 is a request of a couple extensions from ABMD Solar One LLC.
Okay, regarding item 1, I move we grant the company a license to operate as a natural gas supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff, and direct the company to notify the commission within 30 days of any changes in the information in the application. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Suchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbay.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 2, I move we cancel the company's electricity supplier license. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Suchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbay.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 3, I move we grant the requested limited waiver of COMAR 20.62.03.04C and extend the operational deadline for the company's solar project to April 11, 2026. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Suchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbay.
Aye.
Regarding item 4, I move we grant the requested limited waiver of COMAR 20.62.03.04C and extend the operational deadline of the company's solar project to April 26, 2027. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Suchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbay.
Aye.
I vote aye. And regarding item 5, I move we grant the requested limited waiver of COMAR 20.62.03.04C and extend the operational deadline of the company's solar projects to December 31, 2026. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Suchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbay.
Aye.
I vote aye.
And item number 6 on the administrative agenda is a petition to modify a commission order from Fiber Asset Co. LLC.
Good morning, Chair Hoover and Commissioners. Jennifer Purvis, appearing on behalf of staff. On June 25th, 2025, Fiber Asset Co. filed an application for operating authority to provide resold and facilities-based local exchange services in Maryland. As noted in staff's original comments on Fiber Asset Co.'s application, the company has not previously been authorized to provide telecommunication services in any other state, but currently has applications pending or plans to file applications in the District of Columbia and every state except Alaska. The company's application was filed in connection with the larger transaction through which certain fiber assets and customers will be transferred from Castle Fiber LLC to the company. The transfer of these fiber assets is being undertaken in connection with a transaction under which a subsidiary of Front Range Intermediate Inc., an indirect intermediate parent of Zio Group LLC, will acquire Fiber Asset Co. A separate filing addressing that transaction was filed concurrently with the Fiber Asset Co. application for operating authority and will be addressed at an upcoming administrative meeting. Based on staff's understanding of the services Fiber Asset Co. intends to offer, and staff's interpretation of the definition of telephone company in the Public Utilities article, staff initially concluded that the Commission did not have jurisdiction over the company because the services the company intends to offer did not qualify as either local exchange telephone services or exchange access telephone services, and thus did not bring Fiber Asset Co. within the definition of a telephone company in Maryland. As a result, staff recommended that the Commission note the filing, or in the alternative, if the Commission determined that it did have jurisdiction over the company, that the Commission grant the requested operating authority along with the standard COMAR waivers. The company did not file or voice objections to staff comments prior to or during the August 27th, 2025 administrative meeting at which this matter was considered. At that administrative meeting, the Commission voted to note the filing and issued a letter order to that effect on the same date. On September 5th, 2025, Fiber Asset Co. filed a petition for modification of the Commission's August 27, 2025 letter order, requesting that the Commission grant the company the requested operating authority because the services it intends to provide qualify as special access services, which fall within the Federal Communications Commission's definition of exchange access services. With respect to an entity seeking authority to operate as a telephone company in Maryland, Section 1-101 NN of the Public Utilities Article states, in relevant part, that the term telephone company means a public service company that either owns telephone lines to receive, transmit, or communicate local exchange telephone services or exchange access telephone services, or that leases, licenses, or sells local exchange telephone services or exchange access telephone services. Staff therefore determines whether an applicant falls within that definition by considering, like the FCC, on a case-by-case basis, whether the specific services an applicant intends to provide qualify as local exchange telephone services or exchange access telephone services. In making that determination, staff relies on the applicant's description of the particular services it will provide. Oh dear. My presentation is backward here. Excuse me. Just a minute. Excuse me. All right. Fiber Asset Co.'s petition for modification prompted staff to undertake a review of how it interprets the scope of the terms telephone company, local exchange telephone services, and exchange access telephone services under Section 1-101 NN of the Public Utilities Article. Staff emphasizes that the results of staff's review do not in any way increase the regulatory burden on either the Commission or on telecommunications carriers. In addition, staff's review has produced a simple means of determining whether an applicant qualifies as a telephone company in Maryland, and thus whether the Commission has jurisdiction over that applicant. Because neither the Public Utilities Article nor COMAR define the terms local exchange telephone services or exchange access services, staff turned to federal laws, regulations, orders, and decisions defining equivalent terms under the Telecommunications Act of 1996, or the 96 Act. Staff notes that the United States Supreme Court has upheld the FCC's authority to establish regulations and issue orders implementing and governing the competitive carrier interconnection and access requirements of the 96 Act at the state and local level. The FCC defines the term telephone exchange service and exchange access as including not only traditional telecommunication services, but also advanced services using any technology. Accordingly, Maryland should likewise interpret the equivalent terms exchange telephone services and exchange access telephone services in the definition of telephone company under the Public Utilities Article as likewise including advanced services using any technology. The FCC has further found, in particular, that special access services, which provide a dedicated path between an end user and a service provider's point of presence, qualify as exchange access services. So Maryland should do the same. Finally, the FCC has concluded that the provision of access to exchange or exchange access facilities is the determinant of whether a service constitute exchange service or exchange access service. The same should therefore also be Maryland's touchstone in determining what entities qualify as telephone companies in the state. Like the FCC, the Commission should determine the nature of a telecommunications service by looking to the endpoints of that service. Based on this analysis, an entity seeking authorization to operate as a telephone company in Maryland would fall within the definition of a telephone company under the Public Utilities Article if it would either lease, license, sell, or own telephone lines to receive, transmit, or communicate any telecommunication service using any technology, including special access services, that would provide access to either local exchange or exchange access facilities in Maryland. The only caveat to that bottom line is that the Commission would not have jurisdiction over a company that provided only voice over IP services or only services that would be considered information services because they integrate transmission with the termination to origination from edge internet service providers such as Google, Facebook, or Amazon. This is the case because Section 8-602 of the Public Utilities Article states that the Commission does not have jurisdiction over voice over IP services, and because under the 96 Act, the provision of information services cannot be regulated as common carrier services. If a company provided both telecommunication services and voice over IP services or services that provided access to edge internet service providers, however, the Commission would have jurisdiction to authorize that company to operate as a telephone company in Maryland. But the Commission would only be able to regulate the company's provision of telecom services, not its provision of voice over IP or information services. Since the Commission does not regulate the provision of services by competitive carriers anyway, that situation would not change current practice. Staff's updated interpretation of the definition of telephone company in the Public Utilities article brings that definition into alignment with federal laws, regulations, and orders. Turning to the Fiber Asset Co. application, staff initially reached the conclusion that Fiber Asset Co. did not qualify as a telephone company in Maryland based on the lack of a definitive answer from the company when asked if it provided any services regulated by Maryland. The inconsistency between its request for authority to provide local exchange service and its indication that it did not intend to provide local exchange service, the company's description of its services as not including switched access or traditional voice services, and the company's statement that it would be providing services primarily through its own facilities. All of that gave staff the impression that the company would not be providing either local exchange telephone services or exchange access telephone services, and thus that the company would not fall within the definition of a telephone company under the Public Utilities article. In its petition for modification, Fiber Asset Co. stated that because the services it intends to provide are special access services, which the FCC has concluded are exchange access services, Fiber Asset Co. would qualify as a telephone company in Maryland. Fiber Asset Co. also explicitly stated in its petition for modification that its services will provide access to exchanges via dedicated facilities. Based on this description of its services and staff's review of the definition of telephone company in the context of federal law, regulations, and orders, staff agrees with Fiber Asset Co.'s statement that the special access services the company seeks to provide are properly classified as exchange access, and thus that the company does fall within the staff's updated interpretation of the definition of a telephone company in Maryland. As permitted by the Commission, Fiber Asset Co. requested the standard waivers of COMAR regulations regarding the filing of exchange boundary maps because Fiber Asset Co. will be using the same exchange boundaries as Verizon Maryland, the publishing of white pages directories and the provision of coin telephone service. Staff finds that granting the requested authority would be consistent with the requirements of Sections 251, 253, and 1302 of the Communications Act as amended, FCC orders interpreting those provisions, and with the public convenience and necessity because it would enhance competition in the market for telecommunication services and encourage investment in infrastructure for advanced services in Maryland. In addition, because a multitude of alternative providers exist in the telecommunications market, staff finds that the public would not be harmed by the presence of the company in that market. For these reasons, staff recommends that the Commission grant Fiber Asset Co.'s request to modify the August 27, 2025 letter order, grant the company operating authority to provide resold and facilities-based local exchange services in Maryland, and grant the requested waivers of COMAR 2045-0203B, 2045-0411, and 2045-0501B. Thank you, and staff is available to answer questions.
So, any questions for staff? Commissioner Sussman?
Good morning. First, can you explain to me the benefits for Fiber Asset Company in being regulated by us?
Yes, and there are benefits both for Fiber Asset Co. and for the state of Maryland. And one thing I have found in talking with people is there are sort of two categories of regulation. So there's regulation in the sense of authorizing a carrier, and then there's the regulation of the provision of its services. Under the mechanism established by the 96 Act to permit or enable competitive carriers to enter the local exchange market by and enhance competition and invest in infrastructure by interconnecting with the incumbent local exchange carriers, exchange facility and exchange access facilities. Only telecommunications carriers have the ability under that act to demand access to the incumbent.
Okay. So in order to get that access, they would need to be recognized as a telephone company.
So, right.
Okay.
If they're not designated a telecom carrier in the state, they can't exercise their rights under the 96 Act.
Okay. And so now we have this updated interpretation. Is this going to impact other companies that have sought to be recognized as telephone companies, but were not because of the earlier interpretation of the act?
No, I would say that in the past, staff based its interpretation or its determination of whether a company should receive authority based on its description of the services, its understanding of the definition, and its understanding of the boundary between telecom and information services. My understanding is that for the most part, carriers were granted authorization. It has become, I think, we're seeing a greater number of applications for this kind of authority right now. And because of changes in technology, it's a more difficult determination in some regards because of technology. But I think for the most part in the past, we were granting most of these applications.
Okay, so we're not, and we may see new applications come in because of this modification in how we interpret the statute.
That is possible.
Okay.
But yes, that is possible.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Linton, any questions?
I actually had a few for the company. I'm not sure if they were here, but
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, before,
yeah.
so your questions are just for the company?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
it's-
so let me ask, but you can go ahead and come to the podium, because we'll get to you right. So, as a follow-up to Commissioner Suchman's questions, so what is the consequence for this company of being regulated? I mean, back in the good old days before divestiture, we actually had telephone rate cases, just like we have, gas and electric rate cases. But I take it we're not going to be doing that, right?
No, we currently do not regulate the provision of competitive telecommunication services in Maryland. We regulate the incumbents, Verizon Maryland's provision of services, but not competitive carrier. So it would not change current practice. In fact, most of these services are de-tariffed under our past de-tariffing orders. So really, all it does is enable them to demand access to the network facilities that it needs to enter the market, which is good for Maryland because it allows sufficient entry to maintain a competitive market and encourages the investment in infrastructure that we need, especially now with the coming of artificial intelligence. So it's good.
And if you know, I mean, I guess I can ask the company this, are there customers, residential customers, commercial customers, both?
For Fiber Asset Company or in general?
No, for fiber, for this particular company.
I would leave it to Fiber Asset Co. to answer that perspective.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, all right. So,
With respect to who Fiber Asset Co's customers.
well, actually,
Oh, yeah.
first tell us who you are, and we know who you represent, but just for our minutes.
Yeah, I'm Case Smith, outside counsel to Fiber Asset Co.
Okay.
With respect to customers, Fiber Asset Co's customers would be enterprise and wholesale customers.
I see. Okay. Mr. Linton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. So you understand that by receiving the local exchange service designation for your clients' services, that your customers would have greater access to the commission in the event of, we'll just say, issues that could arise between your service to them.
Yeah. Fiber Asset Co is aware of the increased access to the commission, but expects to and will be, fully compliant with any complaint procedures or outreach to the commission of that type.
Okay. I see that People's Counsel is now has some thoughts. So are you only are planning on offering your services to larger corporations and not on a residential level?
No, not on a residential level. To enterprise customers, healthcare, universities of that type. With respect to enterprise customers, other carriers.
What about commercial?
Sorry, wholesale. Sorry.
What about commercial? Small businesses, for example?
I can't speak to the extent of small businesses. Generally speaking, these services would be oriented at larger companies.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Hoover, Commissioners. Mark Shebus for the Office of People's Counsel. We did not file comments in this matter because, as counsel for staff and counsel for the company noted, the company is not intending to serve residential customers. We did want to note that our understanding is that the larger transaction that counsel for staff mentioned is sort of driving this application by the company is subject to some Federal Communications Commission proceedings. So our inference, and this is speculation because the company didn't say so in its application, they could respond to it today, is that the approval on the Maryland level may have some relation to approval at the FCC of the larger transaction, which ultimately involves the transfer of fiber assets to Zio Group, and this company, Fiber Asset Co., is part of the sort of chain of ownership of that company. So just offering that in the spirit of being helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd actually like to hear a response.
Yeah.
Yeah, with respect to this licensure application being the first part of the larger transaction, in order to separate out the small cell and the fiber aspects of the existing business, part of that is Fiber Asset Co. receiving a license in order to thereafter, receive the existing fiber assets and then continue to offer those services to existing customers.
So the staff noted earlier that you have pending applications in other jurisdictions around the country. According to staff, at least, it was every jurisdiction around the country. Is that still the case?
Yeah, that's still the case. As staff noted, DC and every state except Alaska. There have been, since the time of application, a number of approvals, and I'm happy to follow up with staff and provide a list of those approvals.
Okay, so
But at this time, no denials or rejections.
all right. So Maryland's not the first one approving you for something that you need at the FCC level.
No.
Okay. So are there other? When you say a couple of other approvals, are we talking about just one or multiple?
It's
I don't need a specific number. Just
yeah, it's I would say more than half, but not
Okay.
the complete 50.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. With that, I move we grant the company authority to provide resold and facilities-based local exchange services in Maryland and grant the requested waivers of Comar 20.45.02.03b, 20.45.04.11, and 20.45.05.01b. Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbay.
Aye.
I vote aye.
And item number 7 is a request for a penalty waiver from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Alden Manka on behalf of staff. On May 20th, 2025, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County requested that the Commission waive the commodity and excessive use penalties imposed on UMBC by Baltimore Gas and Electric Company due to UMBC's failure to interrupt its gas use during an interruption event called by BGE. This interruption was called by BGE from 10 a.m. on January 20th, 2025 through 10 a.m. on January 23rd, 2025. Under Section 3.4A of BGE's Interruptible Large Volume Service Tariff, customers must cease gas use within 6 hours of receiving notice from BGE. Due to UMBC's failure to interrupt gas use, it was assessed a commodity penalty of $96,049 and an excessive use penalty of $7,940,477 in accordance with Section 3.4A of BGE's IS tariff. Section 3.4B of BGE's IS tariff provides customers an option to petition the Commission for a reduction or waiver of a penalty imposed if that customer can demonstrate that a good faith effort was made to interrupt its gas use. A good faith effort includes efforts made prior to the interruption, why compliance was not achieved, efforts made during the interruption, and efforts made after the interruption. For efforts made prior to the interruption, UMBC did pass a physical interruption test on November 19th, 2024. However, the engineering division comments note that each of the 4 boilers had a separate issue for why they could not fully run during the interruption. compliance was not achieved because of problems with the boilers. Boiler 1 had an oil flow meter malfunction. Boiler 2 had a leak. Boiler 3 was not able to be run at the same time as the other boilers. And Boiler 4 had a failed vent damper and was out of service during the entire interruption. For UMBC's efforts to correct noncompliance during the interruption, UMBC notified BGE that it was not successful in interrupting its gas use and kept BGE up to date with its status as the interruption period progressed. UMBC contacted the boiler manufacturer for assistance with restarting the boilers. The boilers were run on gas in order to keep temperatures high enough to maintain a minimum temperature in the buildings. Prior to the interruption, UMBC's average gas use was 500 therms per hour, and during the interruption, its gas use averaged 200 therms per hour. Additionally, UMBC consumed gas for 68 out of the 72 hours of the interruption. After the interruption, UMBC described the repairs to the boilers that it was undertaking, as well as stating that it is working to be able to operate on only one boiler instead of the 2 boilers currently required. Additionally, UMBC has been in contact with BGE regarding switching from interruptible service to firm service, and BGE is conducting a load and infrastructure analysis to determine if that is feasible. UMBC has been an interruptible customer since 2002 and has passed the physical interruption test each year. UMBC has successfully interrupted in each event since 2014, with the exception of a 2-hour period in a 2015 interruption, for which UMBC sought and was granted a penalty waiver by the Commission. In that situation, UMBC only used 3% of its demand, rather than the average of 40% of its demand in this case. UMBC's high use, combined with not interrupting for 68 out of the 72 hours of the interruption, is severe. In addition, each boiler experienced a separate issue indicating a potential lack of preventative maintenance, as indicated by the Engineering Division comments. Therefore, staff recommends the Commission not waive the commodity and excessive use penalty assessed by BGE on UMBC. Thank you, and I am available for questions.
Okay, so it strikes me this is what, the 5th, 6th one of these things we've had come before us, and it seems to me they've all followed the same scenario, which is the interruptible customer conducts this test in November on its equipment, and then a couple of months later, BG&E sends them a notice saying, we need you to interrupt the following week for a certain period of time, and when that event occurs and the switch is made to the alternative fuel under the provision of being an interruptible customer, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And, so they keep using gas. BG&E then in turn proposes the fine, which is part of their tariff, and then they wind up here, asking us to waive the fine. So I guess I want to go all the way back to the beginning with this test. Mm-hmm. Is this a specific test, or is this just like a best practices, an evaluation of the system?
My understanding is it's a 4-hour, essentially they have to interrupt for 4 hours on the day of the test. Of course, this was in November. Mm-hmm. Conditions in November are not the same as conditions in January, and a 4-hour interruption is different from a 72-hour interruption. So It's not perfect, but my understanding is that is what the interruption test is.
So, and the results of the test, is it just the customer and their contractor who are present for this test, or are there like folks from BG&E or the Commission there too?
I believe that previously BGE has stated they are not usually present for the interruption tests.
Neither are we. Yeah.
I believe so. They tell the company when to do it, and then
Right.
they can do it, and BGE can monitor their use during that time.
And the results of this test, do they get provided to you or to BG&E, or?
I believe BGE would have the data because they have the customer's usage. I don't believe the Commission has provided the results of the tests.
All right. But it does raise the matter, in my mind at least, of what is the utility of this test if in every one of these situations they've tested, passed the test, and then when it comes time to actually interrupt, then everything goes haywire. So I guess I'm questioning, is this test really valid? Does it accomplish anything?
Well, it would, in certain cases, find severe failures, perhaps, but it is possible that it may need to be altered going forward to perhaps be more thorough.
Which again, I mean, is this a test that we designed, or is this some sort of standard practice test?
I do not know.
All right. Any other questions for Commissioner Sussman?
So in this 72-hour period, the university did reduce its usage, correct, from 500 therms to 200 therms.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so more than halfway to total reduction, and then they were in contact the entire time with BGE, kind of explaining what was going on.
Yes.
Okay, and they are now looking to get off of interruptible and to be on firm service, sort of in response to the fact that maybe they shouldn't have been on interruptible service to begin with.
Yes, they have been in contact with BG regarding if it's feasible or not.
Okay, and have they explained to you the impact of a nearly $8 million penalty on the university? So there's a commodity penalty, and then there's the excessive use penalty.
Yes.
So the commodity penalty is $96,000, but the excessive use penalty is $7.9 million on a university. Have they talked to you about the impact of a nearly $8 million penalty on the university?
I am not seeing anything in my notes. I would leave that to them to respond.
Okay. And then I believe in one of, as the chair has pointed out, we've been seeing a lot of these. And I believe in one of the proceedings, we were told by BGE that at any moment when they were sort of seeing that they really were running out of gas, they could have just turned the gas off to these customers.
I believe BGE can do that.
So,
yes.
so if we were sort of at a dire moment, it's not like we were going to see gas turned off from from residential gas customers. They would have lost their gas.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody? Commissioner McLean.
Good morning, sir. You recommended either a complete denial or a modest reduction. What is staff's definition or thoughts on what a modest reduction in the penalty is, sir?
Okay. I know in previous so that was part of engineering's comments, I believe. So for UMBC did, as we said, they interrupted for 4 of the 72 hours. If you want to, do that on a percentage basis, that's around 6% or so, which would be about 500,000. That could potentially be used as a, modest or minimal reduction.
Okay. All right. One other question for you and if you don't know this is fine. On the interruption test that was done in November, it looks like there were only 2 boilers online at that time. Is that correct? So it looks like the third one was installed sometime in January 25, and the fourth one was down since October.
I believe that is correct.
So to your knowledge, was just boilers 1 and 2 that participated in the test, sir?
I believe so.
All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, as I stated earlier, UMBC requires 2 boilers to fully operate.
All right,
But
thank
if 1 and 2 were indeed operable, then it would have been able to pass.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roughly speaking, how much money has UMBC saved over the years for having an interruptible service rate? Maybe I read it in the documents, but I can't remember.
I don't believe that was in the comments, no. I do not know.
Well, okay, answer this then. What percentage of a standard rate would the IS rate be?
I think I may have that. I have the tariff page in here somewhere. Can't seem to find it, but I believe. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it. I believe it's, obviously subject to check, but I believe the interruptible rate is generally around 50% of the firm rate, subject to check.
It's a lot of savings.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, actually, before I turn to either OPC or the company, I want to actually ask BG&E a couple of questions.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Joel Michelle on behalf of BGE. And let me level set. I'm filling in for my learned colleague, Beverly Sikora.
No, I understand.
I don't know how much help I can
Well,
offer you.
I mean, but actually, my question is just this. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is not the first time we've been down this road. And in all these situations, BG&E sends out a notice to the interruptible customer, and I think the notice goes out like a week, 10 days ahead of time. So I guess what I want to find out from you is what's the process that BG&E goes through to determine, hey, we're going to have to interrupt the interruptible customers? I mean, is it based on weather or other factors or
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So what I want to know is what triggers BG&E to send the notice to the interruptible customer.
For an actual-
Yes, we're going to interrupt you, because if I remember right, in this one and all the others, the notice goes out like a week ahead of time. So it must be based on something you're anticipating is going to happen.
Yeah, Chair Hoover, are you asking for an actual event or for the test?
No, the actual event.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that, but
Okay.
I'm sure I can get that answer fairly quickly.
Okay, all right.
But I did have one issue to raise in
Sure.
terms of the company's request. My understanding of the request is that they are seeking a waiver of both the commodity and distribution portions of the penalty. I just note for the Commission's awareness that it would be unprecedented for the Commission to waive the commodity portion, as the commodity portion of the penalty actually represents real costs that were incurred by the company. And in fact, the company's tariff, section 3.4B, you'll note that it does not provide for waiver of the commodity portion.
So that's the 7 point.
That's the 96.
Oh, that's the 96,000 piece of it. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Maybe makes your
No, I
easier.
understand. So,
Yeah.
all right. So now let me go to OPC and then we'll go to UMBC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have the same point that we've made in previous appearances before the Commission. I'll be brief. This doesn't affect directly residential customers, but residential customers are at risk of running out of gas and also have an interest in the penalty portion of what the company pays, because that is returned to customers through the bill stabilization adjustment, as I understand it, including residential customers. I will just also say that we thought staff did a thorough job of evaluating both the good faith test and substantial usage that occurred during the interruptible service event. 68 of 72 hours gas was in use. The boilers had disparate problems, and we agree with staff's analysis that those points and some others they made support the penalty. I'll also note that with respect to Chair Hoover's question about the test, that's governed by Section 3.5 of the tariff, and the company could either use a engineer certification or actually participate in the test, which would be ensuring that they can run for 4 hours during an interruptible service event. Our understanding is that sort of serves as a proxy and a warning to the company to get ready for any potential interruptible service event that BGE may call, but it's a proxy, and as staff noted, not a perfect indication of whether the company can perform during that event. Available for any questions if you have any for us.
Seeing none, thank you. Okay, UMBC.
Oh, yeah, good. You want to do something?
Oh, wait, oh, sure.
Yes, Chair, I just wanted to get back to you on that
Oh, sure.
answer.
Okay.
So my understanding is that what precipitates us calling the actual event is what we're actually seeing on the system and forecasting. It's typically weather related.
Right.
And so on the coldest days, we do some forecasting and we'll call an event if we see some real concerns on the system.
Commissioner Sussman.
So, Mr. Michelle, is the notice goes out, let's say 10 days in advance, but if the weather changes, can you sort of, it's not, you're giving them notice that you might call the event?
I believe that's correct. I believe we do have the flexibility to, send out a subsequent notice. And I believe that the tariff calls for 6 days notice, but, 6 hours. Yeah, six hours notice, but in different scenarios, we can provide more notice. I think in this particular case, we did provide more notice.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Barbe.
Yeah,
actually-
Mr. Michelle, just a request, since we hear so many of these cases, and since in a previous case, it has been said that BG&E can actually shut off the gas if they absolutely need to. Would you have your folks research how many times that has happened? I'm curious to know.
I will get back to you on that, Commissioner Barve. I will note that although that was mentioned earlier as something that we're able to do, it is fairly complicated. It's something that we try to use as a last resort, particularly because it's difficult to then re-provide service once we've
No, I'm fully aware of it's not just turning off one valve. But I'm curious to know how frequently and in order to do that has occurred in the past.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, UMBC, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for this opportunity to address this issue and UMBC's participation in this very important tariff program. I also want to acknowledge the PSC staff for their work. They do an important job, and we respect their work.
Yeah, actually, can you tell us who you are?
I will. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I'm John Zayer. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Facilities Management at UMBC. I have with us here today Mr. Dan Petrie is the Vice President of Administration and Finance. He's our CFO. I have Ashley Hoover here, who is with she's our Senior Special Counsel with our Office of General Counsel. Sean Bloom is our Energy Manager. He has our strongest relationship with BGE and our Account Manager. And I have Randy Jewell here, who is the Central Plant and Utility Manager. We are all here today to confirm all of us are here today to confirm UMBC's support of this important tariff program. I would say all of us here in the room want the same thing, and that is for this tariff program to be successful. A few things, questions you had asked. You talked about the savings. So in 23 years, it's been approximately 16 million. Now, of course, that's going to scale up. It was much less earlier. But to also put it into perspective, an $8 million penalty, we spend about $2 million a year on gas. So an $8 million penalty is 4 years of gas purchasing. We save about $500,000 a year currently. So at the current rate, that's about 16 years of savings for an $8 million penalty, to put that in perspective.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that number?
Sure. So 16 million is about what we saved over 23 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
16, okay.
Yep. And again, we spend about $2 million a year on gas, so an $8 million penalty is 4 years of gas. And we save about $500,000 a year, so that's 16 years of savings. Yeah, well, on the savings, I also want to point out, we keep hearing the term company, and I just want to remind the room, we're a university, a state agency. So, we are supported by the taxpayers of Maryland. That $500,000 savings a year is a savings to our budget, which is state appropriations. There was also a question about the impact. We noted, to staff that it would be a tremendous impact, $8 million. Specifically, if everybody knows, the state is in a tremendous budget crisis. Universities were cut. Dan, our CFO, is working very diligently about how to keep the university working. And this $8 million is going to be a tremendous impact to what we can do for largely many of the same constituents that we're here talking about here today. The taxpayers in Maryland, folks who come to the university from Baltimore City, Baltimore County. We're all there's the same amount of people being impacted. We want to make sure that you all understand that we understand the purpose of this program is to ensure that organizations like UMBC that use large volumes of natural gas are prepared to shut the gas off when asked in peak conditions so that homeowners and small businesses have access to enough gas. We understand that. We also understand that the Commission wants to make sure that participants understand that the lower rates they receive in this program are not a windfall, but are part of an obligation to make sure the necessary investments are made to make sure they comply. And again, we're a state institution. We have, when you look at it, we don't have any motivation to put money in the bank. That money is a direct savings to our budget to the state of Maryland. UMBC has and will continue to invest in our infrastructure to make sure we continue to be strong partners. We are motivated by more than just this tariff. We have 14,000 students on campus, 6,000 faculty and staff. That's 20,000 individuals depending on us to keep the heat on. Over 4,000 of those are residential students 24/7. They're there 24/7. We take this stewardship very seriously, and we will continue to invest in a dual fuel boiler system so that we have ultimate reliability. UMBC has 2 interruptible services, one at the satellite plant, which serves our large residence halls. There's 3 dual fuel boilers there. And it should be noted that UMBC was fully compliant at this last interruption in January at the satellite plant, further demonstrating our readiness and our commitment to this program. Our other interruptible service at the central plant, which serves most of our large academic buildings, this is the account that we're addressing here today. So, over the last 23 years, UMBC has successfully passed the PIT, the physical interruption test, and successfully participated in gas interruptions and events as staff noted. That includes in 95 hours of interruption in 2014 for the polar vortex event. In the last 10 years, prior to January's curtailment, there has been 7 gas interruptions for a total of 265 hours. At our satellite plant, we turn gas off for 265 of 265 hours. At our central plant, we turned it off for 263 of 265 hours. That's a 99.6% success rate. We did, as staff mentioned, we had a brief issue in 2015 for a couple hours. We were able to repair that quickly and get the gas back off. I think UMBC has demonstrated a history of commitment, stewardship, and strong execution to this tariff program. A reminder, the tariff assesses penalties when participants don't comply. This tariff also recognizes that despite the best and most sincere efforts of participants, unforeseen issues do occur, and the tariff has a provision for a participant who does show good faith in these circumstances to seek a waiver. This is an important provision for folks who are trying to participate in a sincere manner in this program, that when things happen, that they have a way of addressing that with you folks. In January of 25, UMBC, and I'm going to state this, all right, I know that there was a lot said and we have more information, was very well prepared for this planned interruption. We experienced, and we'll show you, an unprecedented series of unforeseen breakdowns of all 3 of our working boilers within a 24-hour period. We worked diligently around the clock to make the repairs as quickly as possible. We kept BG informed in every step of the way. We tried to reduce our use of gas as much as we could, keep the campus safe and healthy, and investing in, and we are continuing to invest in upgrades to improve the situation at UMBC. If you can get those things out. In reading staff comments, UMBC is characterized as not being prepared, seemingly not committed to this program, and as if we don't really know what we're doing. With all due respect to staff, we have a contrasting point of view that we'd like to present here today. We have more information. Can we approach the commission with the handout?
Sure.
And then give some to the staff as well, however many they need. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We also want to acknowledge that we may not have had a complete and full understanding of some of the information exchanged between us and staff. There was a period of questions. There were broad questions that we answered, and perhaps not understanding the context in which the staff was looking at it, we are providing the additional information that I think addresses many of the staff's comments. So as we said, the tariff lists 4 conditions that the customer must show good faith effort in doing in order to be considered for a waiver. The first is the need to demonstrate a good faith effort prior to the interruption to be fully compliant. UMBC, as we read that in the tariff, understood that to mean that we needed to demonstrate we were ready to shut off gas and run on our heating operations successfully on fuel oil. We think we showed that in the original appeal. We did pass the pit test, but we also demonstrated, and it's in the appeal, that we ran all of the functioning boilers on fuel oil within 11 days of the plant interruption. In its comments, staff had several statements challenging our maintenance program. They stated that UMBC had a lack of preventive maintenance, that we did not engage an expert boiler technician, that we had issues prior to the event that we did not address sufficiently, and that our boiler water chemistry caused a tube leak. So in addressing the staff comments, again, perhaps we didn't provide enough context. Regarding our preventive maintenance program, our central plant boilers are high-temp hot water boilers. They're not steam boilers. They're not 180-degree boilers. These boilers produce high-temp hot water at 330 degrees Fahrenheit at 250 psi. There's only a few of these in the state. These are highly specialized units. All the boilers in Central Plant are made by a company called Indec Power Equipment Company and are a proprietary product. We follow Indec's recommendations for service and preventive maintenance. These include an annual inspection, continuous monitoring by our UMBC staff, and dialogue with Indec on any conditions that we need to. Regarding the first item, the annual inspection is recommended by Indec was completed in 2024. In 2024, and you'll look at Exhibit A, in 2024, prior to the state inspection, UMBC contracted Fitch Contracting Services, a boiler refractory specialist, to inspect the boilers and make any corrections to the refractory. This is an important piece. In May of 24, Fitch did perform the maintenance. They identified a concern with the door of refractory, the refractory on the door of boiler 2, and this, you'll see also in your handout there, was replaced in June of 2024. This led to the annual inspection. We do this in conjunction with the state boiler inspector, the certified boiler inspector from the state insurance company, and our own staff, who are licensed stationary engineers, to inspect the boilers inside and out. This was done, and it passed the requirements of Indec. We also performed scheduled preventive maintenance, which was stated earlier that we didn't. We also performed schedule, and I'll discuss that a little bit later to address another comment. The second item recommended by Indec is the continual monitoring of the boilers. This is accomplished by our first-class stationary engineers. Because of the size of the equipment we have, UMBC is required by the state law, to have a state-licensed Grade 1 stationary engineer on site at all times. We're a 24/7, 365 operation. A Grade 1 engineer is the highest grade licensed engineer in the state of Maryland. They have experience in the most complex systems, and they have experience working with plumbing, pipe fitting, mechanical, electrical, and they have to pass a test administered by the state in engineering, mechanics, and water treatment. We have eight Grade 1 stationary engineers on our staff. They cover the 3 shifts, 24/7, 365 days a year. These engineers inspect the central plant at the start of each shift, so that's 3 times a day. They also continuously monitor the boilers through our building automation system, where they can see all of the boiler stats in real time. The boiler readings recommended by Indec are on the screen. This is shown in Exhibit C. As the engineers do their daily inspections, maintenance opportunities are identified and carried out. A list of these maintenance repairs from late 2024 till now is shown in Exhibit D, and there's a long list, and we included all the work orders. Sorry, but I know Alden is very detailed, so I wanted to make sure I had all the paperwork. The cost for us to do this, having 8 stationary engineers and all that work, is about $1 million a year. When there is an anomaly with the boilers, the anomaly is escalated in the plant shift pass-down form. UMBC can make adjustments to the Indec system, but we can't get into it to troubleshoot completely. It's an Indec product, and they need to be there to do it. Depending on the discussion, the supervisor, we may make adjustments, or we may contact Indec. An example of this process is in Exhibit E. There's 2 of them in there that show how we identify something on the shift during the daily log, and it moves up through the system to see what needs to be done. It's a very detailed process. In its comments, staff made a statement that each of the boilers had separate issues which were not sufficiently addressed prior to the interruption. Again, we respectfully draw a different conclusion. In October of 24, UMBC arranged for Indec to come to the site to perform scheduled maintenance. The work order for that's in your packet, Exhibit F. It specifically is preventative maintenance. In working with Indec, it was agreed that they would come in the first week of January. That was on their schedule. We addressed the condition of the boilers at the time. This was all seemed very satisfactory. Another one of the staff's comments is that UMBC did not engage an expert boiler technician on preventive maintenance. UMBC engages INDEC to perform the maintenance. In this case, INDEC is the most expert technician for our boilers. Regarding Boiler 1, leading up to the event, on January 9th, as the service ticket shows in Exhibit F, INDEC was there and they decided they needed to tune the boiler, which they did. Tuning a boiler is considered preventive maintenance. It's a proactive and systematic process of making adjustments and performing services to ensure that equipment runs at peak performance and to prevent unexpected failures. Regarding Boiler 2, they were there to look at Boiler 2 as well. They are the expert. They did not tune Boiler 2 because it was running what they had determined was running well, and that actually proved true. A separate issue with the tube, when that was corrected, Boiler 2 turned on oil like that. So they were right in that. Regarding the tube leak, staff made the comment that tube leaks are often caused by corrosion linked to improper boiler water chemistry. UMBC believes that our water chemistry is appropriate and did not contribute to the failure. Looking at Exhibit G, our Grade 1 station engineers who studied water chemistry, they had to pass that test, monitor and record water chemistry every day. There's forms that they use from our water treatment company that comes once a month. They take the readings. Every month they make recommendations, and our Grade 1 stationary engineers who are familiar with water chemistry make adjustments. You can see Exhibit G. Further evidence of this is that we do a coupon test. We did one in August of 2024. A coupon is a sacrificial piece of metal that is placed inside the system so it's experiencing the water that the rest of the system is experiencing. And in that case, Exhibit H shows that test showed that the coupon corrosion rates during the set point period returned acceptable for both steel and copper, or tubes or copper, and the current chemical program will be maintained and continue to be monitored. We believe our water chemistry did not contribute to the tube leak. That was an anomaly. Boiler 3, Boiler 3 is a new boiler. It actually came on, well, we tried to bring it online in 2024. We did eventually, and it works fine by itself. We operated it on fuel oil during the commissioning. So in early January, that same period of time, we had INDEC on site to final commission the boiler in the coldest period of the year. Again, INDEC is the most expert boiler technician. The commissioning process is much more exhaustive than tuning, and it's used to demonstrate the equipment will do what it's supposed to do. Exhibit I shows the commissioning report that we received from a third-party commissioner, not INDEC, but from a third-party commissioner, said that the boiler was able to operate 100% on fuel oil, control with fan and automated and a bypass. No issues were recorded at high capacity, and the unit on oil was putting out, this is a 50 million BTU boiler, was putting out 52 million BTUs. We believe that this thoroughly demonstrates that as of January 9th, 11 days prior to the interruption, boilers 1, 2, and 3 had been serviced, maintained, evaluated, or commissioned by the most boiler expert technician, in our case, INDEC, and that all of those issues that we could have anticipated have been addressed, again, just 11 days prior to the interruption. Staff also said that UMBC did not sufficiently address the issue of readiness because the central plant had inadequate pump and piping capacity of boiler 3 that prevented it from being able to run at the same time as other boilers. Well, yes, this is actually a very complex issue, and UMBC has actually been very thoughtful and diligent in this to show that we successfully did address it. Boiler 3 is a brand new boiler. We identified the need to replace it in 2018. Being very proactive, the original boiler was 25 million BTUs. We were doubling the size to 50 million. In order to do that, we had to hire an engineer, which we did in 2019, and they began the process, and they had also they had to engineer the piping because we're changing the size. So in 2019, that engineer assessed the existing pumps and believed that they could provide enough capacity for the new boiler and the whole system. The project was awarded to a contractor in 21, the new boiler arrived in 23, and by the time we piped everything and started working on it in 2024, that's when we started seeing the trouble. We ran fine by itself, but every time we turned on another boiler, it kicked out. An exhaustive study was done. It was determined that we needed bigger pumps in the plant, and we also worked with our state contracting officer who, as these things go, looking at all the information, they didn't find any fault with anybody, so we just had to figure out what we were going to do and move forward. 5 years had gone by, and we needed to move forward. So these are not standard pumps. They handle high-temp hot water. They need special seals and for cooling because they get very hot, 330 degrees. They are highly specialized units with a very long lead, and they needed engineering. So as soon as we knew what we needed to do, which was in February of 24, we hired a designer. It took them till November. In your packet, Exhibit J has the actual project schedule. February to November to design it. Then we had to procure it. It's a state procurement. This was a $1.35 million project, so we couldn't just go hand it to somebody. The procurement was completed in March, awarded to a contractor, and at that point, by the time that we finished the shop drawings and ordered it, those new pumps are not due to arrive here until May of 26. So UMBC did officially address this issue as fast as we could. Also, in context, as soon as we knew this issue, we hired the engineer, we procured it quickly, and that's the best we could do for that situation. At the same time, Boiler 4 was still working. As we prepared to address the pumps to support Boiler 3, we had 3 boilers that worked, so we had redundancy. They could work together. We encountered an issue with Boiler 4 in October of 2024, and what we did at that point was we checked to see what we could do. Our engineers told us that you had to wait for the new pumps because you couldn't do anything more to satisfy Boiler 3, and at that point there was no way of getting a temporary boiler. I'll talk more. We're looking at that this year, but that is a 6-month process to try to go get a temporary boiler. So what we did, again, we made sure INDEC was here in January to make sure our boilers 1 and 2 would work properly, which we did. This means UMBC expected, for Boiler 4, we also expected Boiler 4 to be back online by mid-January is when the part was supposed to come. UMBC believes that we met this first criteria for the tariffs, that we demonstrated a good faith effort prior to the interruption to be fully compliant. I think we've addressed staff's comments. We perform preventive maintenance. We engage an expert boiler technician from our manufacturer, INDEC. We address all the conditions we knew about prior to the interruption that we could know to know that our system would work. Our water chemistry is well monitored, and we demonstrated that was not contributing to the issue. And all of these boilers worked January 9th, just 11 days prior. Condition 2, as for the second criteria, demonstrating the reason for full compliance was not attained is that a sudden failure of our equipment. We believe we demonstrated that. The day before this event, UMBC, my time must be up. UMBC demonstrated that this appeal, right before this event, Boiler 2, the 2 broke on a Sunday, all right? And Monday was Martin Luther King Day. This guy was on site on Sunday, and we were arranging for a contractor to be there first thing Monday morning, which we did. It was the only reason we got that boiler back up on Monday. I want to make sure it was back up on Monday, not Tuesday. This boiler was back up on the 20th, the first day of the event, in the evening. So that was Boiler 2. And then the next day when we went to start, and the question was, what did we check before? Well, 11 days prior, these guys were working on oil. We started them and we had 1 go off, and then we had 3 go off. So at the start of the eruption, we did everything we could. These were sudden and catastrophic failures. Boiler 1, staff notes, this is a staff comment, quote, had an oil flow meter transmitter that malfunctions, which may reasonably have been an unexpected issue. That's a staff comment. Boiler 2, staff's comments was that the concern was that the water contributed to the corrosion, and we've demonstrated that that's not the case. And then for Boiler 3, again, we just had it commissioned 11 days prior with a commissioning agent and the manufacturer, and we had a part that didn't work, but it was actually part of the a glitch in the programming of the system. It worked fine the day he was there. The day we needed it, the programming didn't work. The more complicated these things get, the more trouble you have. We believe UMBC met this tariff criteria. These were all catastrophic failures that we could not have anticipated. Condition 3 for the third criteria is that demonstrate that we correct the noncompliance during the interruption. Again, we had a contractor on site Monday morning to address Boiler 2. We had INDEC back on there Monday, and they identified the Boiler 1 issue, ordered a part, but the part was not there. It would take several days to come. And they also fixed Boiler 3. So that staff's comments, just to be clear, Boiler 3 was available by the second day, by the 21st, Boiler 3 was available. We did run it on oil, but it could not satisfy the campus by itself, which was the issue we had. So we remained on 1 or on 2, and we ran 1 on gas. So 2 was running on fuel oil, and 1 was running on gas. We remained in constant contact with BGE every step of the way. If they told us we needed to shut off, we would have worked through whatever we needed to do to shut off. At that point, we were running about 40% of our normal load. Staff noted UMBC would normally have consumed 500 therms per hour, and as they noted, at that time we were only running about 200 therms per hour. So through our efforts, we were able to drop to 40% of our normal usage in this period of time, again, working as best we can with the situation we had. Staff acknowledged our concerns. We tried to run our boiler, but it got too cold. So I want to point this out in your packet in Exhibit K. We do have some pictures. One of the things that we were very concerned about was in December of 2022, We had a tremendous storm that came through. It was a windstorm, knocked out power to the UMBC campus as well as many of our peer institutions. And overnight, it got down to 10 degrees. We had 10 buildings with significant damage the next day, over $5 million worth of damage. So we wanted to make sure we kept enough heat on so that we would avoid that catastrophe. We believe that we met the tariff criteria for demonstrating the efforts of noncompliance during the interruption. For the fourth condition, as set forth in our criteria to demonstrate a good faith effort of the customer's actions and to interrupt and be fully compliant in the future, our initial appeal, we demonstrated what our plans were. We had some expenditures, and we also listed a bunch of projects we were planning to do. Since then, and the staff has said that it was a lack of investment. So since then, we have been spending a lot more money and made a lot more commitments. So what you'll see is UMBC has increased our expenditures on spare parts, service, and maintenance. We've spent $121,986 to date. That's Exhibit L in your packet. In our original appeal, we listed projects that we had planned to perform to improve our reliability in general, but specifically to being able to be fully compliant in the future. Since then, we have budgeted, and this is Exhibit M in your packet, $6 million in projects. The central plant, we've already encumbered $1.7 million in contracts, and we've spent $235,000 on those projects. I think this demonstrates significant investment in our central plant, and again, we're going to spend $6 million in the next couple of years to get this right. To highlight the biggest improvements, so certainly we are going to improve our plant pumping system. This is a $2.3 million project, of which we have $1.4 million committed. It's been engineered, it's been contracted, we're just waiting for the pumps. Boiler 3, to improve Boiler 3's pressure flow, we have ordered, we are in the process of ordering a complete replacement to Boiler 4 tubes. The Boiler 4 tubes we're not comfortable with, not confident in. Again, this is a state procurement, so it's taken us a while to get it, and those will not come in until the spring due to the long lead. This is about $800,000 cost. In the meantime, because of Boiler 4 and our concerns, we are in the process of arranging for a boiler on a skid to come to UMBC. Again, we didn't have the time to do this last year. This has taken us, we've had this idea since May. There's not too many people that do it. We've been able to find them, bring them to campus, go through a procurement process. We're right at a point now, we've got a proposal. That proposal is $352,000 plus another $250 to pipe it is $600,000 that we'll spend on a 6-month process to get this in, to get it in before December. And we are also in the process of, and this was Randy's idea, all the engineers didn't come up with this, to use one of our existing pumps to perhaps, we have an engineer looking at this now, to repipe our existing pump as an interim measure to try to get Boiler 3 the more pressure and flow so it will work. To review, UMBC has demonstrated that we met the requirements of the waiver. We made the significant efforts beforehand. We were ready January 9th. We showed we were ready with our expert boiler technician. We experienced sudden and catastrophic failures for numerous alternative fuel equipment. We made significant efforts to correct the noncompliance during the interruption, and UMBC has made a commitment to taking the action to make these investments in the future. We believe that based on the words in the tariff, UMBC has demonstrated a very strong case for a waiver, for a full waiver. We of we're our BG folks, of the penalty that's the 7.9, not the commodity. We take our responsibility to this tariff very seriously, and we understand the need to remain accountable. As a state institution funded by taxpayers, we have no reason to try to get an unfair economic advantage by participating in this program. This is for the state of Maryland, and not making investment, and we have no reason not to make the investment to be fully prepared. Yes, we have engaged with BGE about the possibility of coming off of this system. That was to be prepared for whatever the outcome would be today. We think that we're probably a very good candidate for this because we're such a large user. As stated earlier, we all want the same thing for this tariff program to be successful. This tariff program serves the taxpayers of Maryland. UMBC provides a huge economic impact to the state. We employ about 6,000 faculty and staff, pay them about $290 million annually, and from our university, we have 78,000 statewide alum, creating $78 billion in household income, and they pay $531 million in state and local taxes. So yes, an $8 million impact would be huge to UMBC and to the state of Maryland. The total penalty to UMBC is calculated by the tariff with no consideration is $8 million. As I said earlier, That's 4 years of our total gas bill, and that's 16 years of the savings. In its comments, staff cited the amount of gas that we used as a contributing factor. We would also like to point out that the tariff states specifically any waiver or reduction of the distribution interruption penalty or the excess distribution interruption penalty, that's the one we're talking about, shall consider the customer's good faith efforts to interrupt its gas usage and may not be based solely to the extent in which they actually reduce gas. That's in the tariff. There is precedence. This year there was a hospital that was here, had a similar case. They were non-compliant for 61 of 72 hours. Staff recommended, and it was approved, that their penalty was 1 year of savings.
Not yet.
For us, for UMBC, as we stated, that would be about $500,000. As I've stated, we think we've put together a pretty good case for a full waiver of the large penalty. If the commission believes that some penalty is warranted, we would think that that would be a fair, since there's precedence, that would be a fair penalty. We believe we have demonstrated a strong case for a waiver. UMBC is committed to this program. We make the investments, and we think that an $8 million penalty would not benefit the taxpayers. We think that it is out of line with the situation, our efforts, and what we actually did. Thank you.
Commissioner Barbe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, in listening to your testimony, it sounds to me like INDEC is the incompetent bad guy in this story. Am I right?
So because INDEC did something and then it didn't work, is your observation?
That appears to be what you've told us. Am I getting that correct?
Well, INDEC was here, and they showed us that the boilers worked, and they didn't.
Okay, so they are in the wrong partly.
Okay.
Yes or no?
Well, hi, I'm Sean Blum. I'm the UMBC Energy Manager.
Mm-hmm.
The boilers did work while INDEC was there, but just because something is, all the PM is done on it, it's ready, working, and operable, doesn't mean that even that very next day, it could suffer a catastrophic failure. So I don't think INDEC was necessarily the bad guy.
Right.
And
Well,
Randy knows better. He's the
Well, the reason I asked the question is most contractors have errors and omissions insurance. They expect to make mistakes and they expect to get sued. If we do levy some or all of this penalty, are you going to take legal action against them?
Well, that's also partially a state determination, because again, we are an agency of the state, so we would have to coordinate with them too to see if it's something that can be pursued.
I've never seen the state to be hesitant to sue people who have been incompetent.
There are litigation team in the state of Maryland.
Would you recommend that the UMBC sue them?
I would have to read the facts regarding what they actually did, but it sounds like, just based off of what they're talking about this company did, it's worth evaluating for sure. But again, I don't have all the facts regarding the specific contractor.
Okay, you used a term in your testimony that I didn't understand. You talked about third-party commissioners. What is that?
So we hired a separate company other than ourselves. I'm sorry. Thank you. We hired a third party other than ourselves, who is an expert in commissioning. In this case, it was actually our peer institution, UMB, who has a commissioning agent on staff. So they witnessed the...
What do you mean by the word commission in this instance? Does that mean the installation and management of physical plant?
Okay, no, sir. It is, once the unit is in place and declared the installation's complete and it's ready to work, the commissioning agent takes it through its steps to see that it responds accordingly, that it does what it's supposed to do, that it comes on the way it's supposed to come on, it responds to sensors that tell it to come on, that if the safeties work, that if there's all of a sudden a lack of gas, that it shuts down properly, all the things that it needs to do. We did that twice. We did it in the summer to make sure it worked. The timing was there for that, but obviously it wasn't under peak load. So we also did it in January to make sure that it worked when it was very cold.
Okay, so the third-party commissioning agent was another agency within the government, correct? Not a subcontractor.
Right.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it, but I do want to, there are 2 points I want to make just for the record. With respect to the hospital, we haven't ruled on that yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, there's no reason for you to have known that. And number 2, you will find that it is a constant frustration, especially in the business community, when the government is more lenient on its agencies than it is with private sector actors. And so my view is that we should handle your case in a manner that is substantially similar to private sector actors. Otherwise, this kind of frustration may in fact be quite valid, perhaps.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I believe the hospital John Zaire was talking about was ruled upon in your June 4th hearing of this year. It was Perry Point Medical Center.
Oh,
Sinai
I guess I was thinking about a different
Sinai
hospital.
Hospital got a 100% waiver.
What?
Perry Point VA Medical
Yeah, you may be
Center,
correct about that. So, I mean,
they
as-
got a reduction.
Right, I
all the way
understand.
Down to be comparable with one.
Okay, I guess I had in my mind a different
Yeah, so-
different
And we
hospital.
agree, it would be unfair to treat us more harshly than.
I understand.
Or
and-
more favorably.
Or more favorable.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of a feedback on what I think about treating us as if we're a company and not necessarily a state agency. It's overlooking the fact that the core business of UMBC, even though it's an agency of the state, it's our service to the students, right? So you're really harming the students as opposed to, and the institution as the whole, because all of those funds that would go towards this excessive use penalty are something that can be used for student programming, for bettering the community, for all of the things that universities do as a part of what they provide to the state of Maryland,
Well-
to the broader.
I understand that, but you have to understand that we've actually been told by another applicant, and I think it's the hospital that Commissioner Barvey is referring to, that if we impose the penalty on them, they were going to have to take it out of their patient care. So we hear these stories about the impacts of these
Yeah.
penalties on operations, and as Commissioner Barvey mentioned, I mean, it's part of what we have to factor into it, but it's not necessarily a get out of jail free card.
No, I know, and with due respect, hospitals have a little bit of a different size pocket than
Sure.
another state agency.
All right.
I just wanted to make sure.
Everybody is different from everybody else.
And also, when we were pointing out that we're not a business entity, it wasn't to get favorable treatment. It was to point out the fact that the savings, unlike a company where they get those that $500,000 of distribution savings annually in their own pockets, that $500,000 savings is never even in our budget because we've already planned for and accounted for that we're going to save that. So that $500,000 savings happens at the taxpayer level before it's put in our budget.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Commissioner McLean.
Good morning. In relation to Boiler 3, it seems that at least the school was aware that the existing pumps and heating system were old and inadequate, and that's on page 2 of your initial response, and it's also in an email from Mr. Jewell on Wednesday, January 22nd, when he states that there were 2 deficiencies we knew about going into the heating season, and he states the first was the inability to operate Boiler 3 with other boilers as a result of a well-known pump issue. And just wondering if you could respond to that, because it kind of maybe feeds into where staff was coming from in terms of the maintenance and infrastructure.
Yeah, so again, going into the heating season of 24 to 25, yes, that we had already known, and we had the engineers designing, and then we were, at that point, contracting. We were procuring a contractor in the fall of 24 to buy and install the new pumps that would correct that problem. But again, this was in the fall of 24, and at that point, we had 3 boilers that worked, 1, 2, and 4. It was only in October that we found out that 4 had a part that was going to take us into the heating season, and by that time it was, when we looked around, I mean, there's no way to, it was very hard to get a replacement boiler in October.
Okay, so when you were saying that the pumps were well-known issue or inadequate, it's not that they were from like 1985.
No.
And okay, all right.
So the issue is the pumps. The pumps are fine. They work great. There's nothing wrong with them. They're well maintained. They operate perfectly. The problem is that the new boiler required a different pump curve, and they didn't realize that because of the flow restriction through the new boiler. When the pump runs, which should have been enough to move enough GPM through both systems, the restriction on the new boiler caused excessive flow through the other boilers, and it would not get enough flow to maintain, which is part of the safety system for that.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that, sir. Sir, in terms of your inquiry to BGE about switching to firm service, is that something that the school's just doing as, just looking into it as a possibility, or is it something that the school is actually going to seriously look into?
Well, again, in context, we thought that, and I think I even read it in part of the information that I've seen in other places from this group, certainly worth exploring, and that's what we did. We're exploring it. I know my leadership believes that this is a worthwhile program, that we're going to invest in dual fuel boilers anyway, that we should continue to be a partner. I think that, and again, BG is in the process of evaluating whether they can take us off, that we, what would be the impact to, the system in that vicinity if we were to be running at 100%, not 40%, but 100% on a 3-day event. What would that do to the residents and the small business in the area? They're still calculating that. So, we believe that, we've shown that we are committed to it, and we could. Again, based on the outcome, I'll have to have, discussion with my leadership as to, what our next step is. But I don't want to wait until then to begin the process with BGE for at least the idea.
Understood, but I guess given the investment you've made in your boilers, your strong preference would be at least to stay on the system.
Yes.
As interruptible for the foreseeable future.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Sussman.
Well, I'm going to actually ask Mr. Michelle to come back up, and then I'll, yeah. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, Miss Sikora, you owe me big time. Okay. Does BGE offer a demand response program for gas?
We currently do not.
Yeah, and I can tell you don't, because I recall asking, I don't know if it was you or WGL during one of our Empower hearings, about a demand response offering. And we were told that they didn't see the need for it because, so I'm sure it was WGL that said that, because there was sufficient gas and that wasn't going to be a problem. It seems to me, in listening to this, that we now, that the university, which I believe should absolutely not be on an interruptible rate, should be on a demand response rate, and should be, or a demand response program, because they have all the tools necessary to be able to respond, but there are going to be instances where they can't fully respond. So, for example, this going from 500 to 200 would have given them a nice little chunk of change had there been a demand response opportunity available, and so I'm aware that there's going to be an Empower hearing at the end of this month, and I would love to see a demand response offering. I mean, it's just, there are going to be situations where hospitals, universities, other entities that cannot, for health and safety reasons, reduce to zero the amount of usage. I mean, I'm assuming, for example, that the demand response program for electricity doesn't have a 72-hour stay off electricity, that it's a reduction in use. It doesn't have to be 100% reduction in use, but there's going to be a reduction in use that will benefit the system. So notwithstanding what we were told in the last Empower hearing, where demand response for gas wasn't necessary, it seems to me that this is the perfect solution, and tell me why I'm wrong, but it seems like this is the perfect solution for entities like the university, of Maryland that has the equipment to reduce, but then has the flexibility where if they can't reduce, they don't reduce. And when they reduce, they will be paid. So they can be on their firm rate and get the benefit from reductions. I don't know if it'll match the $500,000 of savings, but it'll certainly go, I think, some way towards giving them the kind of assistance, financial assistance that they're seeing now, but also benefit from the system.
As a commissioner's judgment, appreciate the question. I will certainly take that back. I'm not sure we can have a proposal or something fleshed out in time for the.
I can tell you on October 30th, I'm going to be anxiously awaiting a demand response program for gas, and I'll ask about it. And hopefully WGL is listening because I've just received my answer. I mean, there are going to be situations where the university cannot, for whatever reason, reduce. But if they've got these boilers that can switch over and they can provide assistance for the system when they need a reduction in gas usage.
Yeah, understood. And I would just note that I think even in a demand response program, we would still have the same issue that we're having today. If that equipment that we've been discussing today fails, then
They
whether,
won't. Then,
whether-
the difference is that there would be no penalty imposed on them. They would just not be because it's not a mandatory demand response. So all that would happen, unless I'm wrong, but all that would happen was that they just wouldn't get paid for the demand response that you were expecting from them.
Understood. As I mentioned, I can certainly take that back.
Okay, so UMBC. How would you feel about participating in a demand response gas program if one were offered?
I would think we would consider it strongly. You have a
Yeah, I agree. We would consider it, and probably, historically, we've always had the ability to 100% stop using gas, and that's still in the cards for us. And I think in those situations, we would go to 100% switch to oil.
Right, but it just seems to me.
But it does leave that flexibility.
Right.
So you're not inundated with these follow-ups when we do have a gas interruption for everybody coming and begging for
Right.
relief from the penalty.
It seems like for me, I would be much more comfortable in having interruptible, where you're completely off the gas system, really for those customers that can tolerate the possibility of failure. It's a business risk, and you don't have business risk, or you shouldn't have business risk. And it just seems to me for the companies that can tolerate the business risk and the risk of $1 million penalties, I think that's okay. Otherwise, the program becomes a failure waiting to happen, and every time we'll see very we're seeing catastrophic forecasts of weather in all different directions, and we're probably going to see something like a polar vortex again, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of customers coming because they can't meet the 100% reductions. You actually you weren't a total failure. You actually got to more than a 50% reduction, but because you were using gas, some amount of gas, that was a failure according to the program. And it just seems to me that universities and hospitals should not be on interruptible rates. But I also think that you have a value to the system that can be recognized. Mr. Michel hopefully is listening, and maybe WGL, in having a demand response program for gas. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Litton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Well, let me step back for a second. I just want to make sure I'm clear that regarding the central boilers that you have currently, you use them not just for interruptible scenarios, but to provide service to the campus as a whole, or is
Right.
it they're used on a regular basis?
Yes, sir.
Yes, at the central plant, we have four boilers identically sized, 50 million BTUs per hour. And under worst case, severe cold, extended weather, we need no more than 2 of those boilers to be functioning. So we actually have a system that is built to have dual double redundancy, not just N+1, but N+2. So that's why when we were missing 1 boiler from the plan of having 4, we were still having plenty with 3, and we expected even if we had 2, we would have plenty. But we had those problems with tube failure.
So for different reasons for each of the different 4 boilers, the problem is that you weren't able to switch the fuel to oil for 2 of them. Okay. All right. So I guess if nothing else, the fine did.
And ultimately, we did end up very quickly managing to have 1 boiler run totally on oil, and then the other, as the load was, if the load was severe, we ran 1 boiler as necessary on gas. That's why were able to reduce 60%. And there were even 4 hours where we didn't use any natural gas.
So you had 2 boilers that were completely down.
So we had, at points in time, we had boilers down. We had boiler 2 was completely down because of the tube. Once the tube was repaired, which was started on Sunday, the tube was repaired by Monday evening. That was back up and running for the rest of the outage on oil. Boiler 1 went down, and we couldn't run it on fuel oil because of a component, but we were able to run it on gas. And that's what Sean said, and staff acknowledged. We tried to run on boiler 2 as much as we could. We got to a point where it got too cold. We had to bring 1 on in order to meet the demand, the minimal demand, and that's when we started using gas again.
Okay.
And
All right.
number 3 would run on both, but again, we had the issue when we start 3 up, the other boiler would kick off. So that's
Right. So there hadn't been an instance where you had to run them both at the same time to have discovered that in advance.
well, we run at the same time, and we have done that before successfully.
I'm talking about 3 and 4.
I'm sorry. Okay. So boiler 3, correct. We already knew that. As I said, we knew that in March of 2024 that when we start boiler 3 and we start another boiler 3 kicks off. Yes, we knew that. Again, it was a long process of engineering the fix, procuring it, and then buying it. So we knew that, but we couldn't fix that until May of next year.
And at that time, boilers 1, 2, and 4 were all fully functional. So again, we had enough for worst case capacity plus 1 whole extra spare. So we didn't foresee we would ever be in this situation. And the
Okay.
equipment is checked out and working.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I actually had a few questions for staff, if they're,
Oh, okay. Well,
if they're still here.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, in your, in the materials that you provided to the, commission, you did reference some of the, data responses that you received from UMBC. Here today, of course, they provided us with, a lot of extra documents. Were these provided to you as part of your investigation?
This large packet, I believe no, it was not.
Okay, so this is the first time staff has seen this.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. So I'll return to UMBC then. So as the staff was investigating this so that they could present this information to us today, they're reporting that they didn't receive this material in advance. Is there any reason for that?
Well, they received some of it. There was further clarifications. Again, being first time for most of us in this, we responded to the original appeal reading the tariff, and we tried to address the points in the tariff. During the process, staff did ask us some questions. They were broad. We answered them simply. When we saw what the staff was looking for in their comments, we realized we had the information, we just hadn't provided it. Again, the questions weren't as specific until we got the comments.
But you were certainly aware of the exposure. I mean, you had already received the fine communication from BGE that you were looking at $8 million problem. So I'm just curious as to why UMBC hadn't produced as much as possible the moment the question started asking, so that when we got to this moment today, we could provide, we'd have everything in advance. I mean, and I'm a fast reader, but,
I understand.
yeah, so, please.
I can just say that we read the original questions that came in the interim. We answered them very simply. We tried to get a fast answer back. We thought that we had answered the questions in context with the tariff as we read it. I understand your question. Again, I didn't have context as what it was that the staff was looking for as what they needed to understand why they would come up with their conclusions.
So this, obviously, it wasn't just for us, but even for our People's Council. Have you provided a copy of any of this information? I don't know. Is she? Oh, there she are. He's standing up. Did you provide any this information to them as well? Or?
Do you have a copy? Today. Yeah, just today.
Today. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the fact that you've provided it and that there's a lot to work through in here. So I'll end there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So
Thank
I
you.
think actually, give me a sec. So I think the concern is that, in your presentation today, you challenged a number of assertions that were presented by staff as to what happened and why. And, I think that what Commissioner Linton is expressing is this thought that had staff had this full set of information that you gave to us today, maybe they wouldn't have made, some of the assertions in their comments that, you've been challenging. Because part of your presentation was a specific list of sort of factual disagreements that you had with what staff put in their comments to us, but the comments that they provided to us is based on the investigation they did and the information that you provided to them. So I think the message is, yeah, maybe you answered their specific questions, but this may have come back to bite you because, staff made decisions and made assessments based on what they knew, and had they known more, maybe they would have had a different decision.
I understand.
Okay.
Again, that there's a little bit of an iterative process when you're trying to evaluate something.
I understand that. So let me. So a couple questions I have for you. You said that the boilers in question here mainly serve academic buildings, not
Correct.
dorms and things like that.
That's correct.
And the problem you had was because it was so cold, you had to maintain a certain temperature, because if you didn't, you were going to have damage to the buildings. I'm assuming pipes freezing and all the stuff that usually happens at those events. But did the university conduct classes and operate as normal during this event, or?
There were events going on. It was prior to the beginning of the spring semester.
Okay.
So we did what we could to try to minimize, what the impact would be to the operation.
Okay.
Yeah, lab buildings, yeah.
Sorry, we're also an R1 institution, and we have labs that are actively
Okay.
being used
Sure.
year-round.
Sure.
And we have animal rooms that require very stringent
Okay.
conditions.
Yeah. No, I understand. So there are various reasons why you had, and I think it goes to the point of, as we've mentioned, you're not the first one that's shown up here in this situation, and everybody who's come here before us looking for this waiver has said, well, the problem is we couldn't just stop operations because we're a hospital, we're an aged facility, we're a veterans facility, and one ultimately was a factory who basically said, hey, it would cause too much damage to our process, and so therefore it was cheaper for them to pay the fine than to shut down their operation. So actually, let me turn to staff, and if you got any, based on what you've heard from them, other than the idea that maybe if you'd known more, you might have had a different view on this, but is there any response you have to what UMBC has presented to us?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Drew McAuliffe on behalf of staff. I would say no, we wouldn't change our recommendation based on what we heard today. The fact is they still had issues with all 4 boilers. So, we look at all these in a silo. So, our engineer's not here today, but we just saw the most systemic errors from this customer. That's why I recommended the full fine be upheld. I would agree with Commissioner Barvey's sentiment that there seems to be an issue with the contractor, and that's frankly not an excuse to waive the penalty. So we heard boilers 3, we were told, oh, the equipment's okay to serve that boiler. Once they start operating, oh, actually, no, you do need to upgrade your other equipment. I mean, that's just frankly not a great excuse. So we would stick with our original recommendation. I mean, we can have the engineers look through this packet, but there's nothing we could do with this today, obviously.
Sure, I understand. Okay. All right, so let me turn to OPC. They've been sort of waiting patiently, so.
Julie Bell again for OPC. I just wanted to talk a little bit, to step back. This is a very knowledgeable commission, and I'm not going to belabor this point because I think some of you some commissioners have made this point previously about the purpose for interruptible service. And under interruptible service, the customer, regardless of whether it's a public institution or a private entity, takes the risk for situations in which there'll be an interruptible gas event, and they do that in exchange for a reduced price. And when the commission, just generally, this is a general point, decides to waive substantial penalties or to substantially reduce a penalty, it's shifting that risk to other customers, including residential customers. So I just wanted to make that overarching point, and also to point out that the tariff itself is a two-pronged test. It talks about good faith efforts and substantial reduction of gas usage during the event. And here I think the company notes that at times it reduced gas usage by 60%, but 68 of the 72 hours it was using gas. So I hope the commission thinks a little bit about those risk shifting principles when it's weighing not only this but other interruptible service waiver requests. And I'd also request that to the extent that the commission is considering reducing the penalty, that it ask the company for its math on the $16 million reduction over the life of the interruptible service tariff. We'd be interested in seeing that. It seems of interest in making the decision. So thanks very much.
Okay.
May I respond?
All right, so let me.
May I respond to that?
Just 1 second. So we're not going to make a ruling today. We're going to take this, what we refer to as take it under advisement, which means we go back and take a look at all this, this information you gave us today and other things. And we have I think at least 2 or 3 other of these waivers, that are pending for us to make a decision on. So I will let you have, the last word since you're the person that's seeking the waiver. But I don't want you to, tell us everything you told us before. If you got some specific points you want to make, go ahead. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Just to respect to the People's Council, yes, I would say we actually did both of the things that was just stated. We made every effort. I think we demonstrated that, and we did actually shut off quite a bit of gas. We went down to 40%. That's 300 therms an hour. The average house, and BG can correct me if I'm wrong, but they use about 500 to 700 therms a year. So in that time frame, we provided gas back to the system of probably for thousands of homes, multiple thousands of homes in that time period, because we did make a major effort and got down to 40%. So I would just make that statement.
Oh, actually,
Mr. McAuliffe?
Yes.
Sorry. When your engineer has an opportunity to look at that, will you let the commission know one way or the other what, if anything, has changed in your assessment, sir?
Sure, we could file updated comments if you'd like to see that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so with that, we're adjourned for today. So, for those of you who are here for RM 84, we will start that at noon. So we're going to take a little 10-minute break and then.